gentlemen, give it up for Daniel Garcia. Hello out there. How is everybody doing? Beautiful. This is a wonderful looking audience, let me just tell you. Let me just tell you, beautiful looking people out there. I tell that, I say and feel every single day, let me tell you. Now, just by a round of applause, I'd like to know who here is here for the Moth for the very, very first time, has never ever been to a Moth event. By a round of applause, round of applause. Great. So, for those of you who are familiar with the Moth is a storytelling organization dedicated to the art and craft of telling live stories without notes. There will be none of this in anybody's hand, but I get to cheat because I have to call and speak in Spanish and do some other things. So there'll be no notes, but the Moth is dedicated to the art and storytelling, of storytelling. And the way that this organization was founded many, many years ago, a novelist by the name of George Dawes Green was living in Savannah, Georgia. And George is a novelist. He wanted to be able to communicate and tell stories and hang out with his family. And they did. They would sit at his porch, and his family and his friends would come by. And as the moths would come in, they would be attracted to the lights. And so as they would sit around telling stories in Savannah on his porch, they started calling themselves the Moths. And they started building community and telling these stories. And many years later, George moved here to New York City. And he felt that people in New York were a little bit too fast-paced. People were talking sound bites and clips, and nobody was really telling stories anymore. So he decided that he wanted to recreate this experience and started hosting events in his living room. So from his living room, he decided to have these people come over and start to tell stories. And then from there, it started growing and growing to what we have today, which is this phenomenal world-class organization which has so many different divisions. It has slams every single week where people can come tell a 5-minute story and anybody can tell their story. We have the community outreach program, our community education program, which is specifically in high schools. Our community program, like this tonight, which I'm so excited about, because this is going to be truly the first. This is going to be groundbreaking, because this is the first time that we get to do an event in English y Español. So give it up for yourself. For being the first time. So the Moth has just been really groundbreaking in the way that we tell stories. And we're so excited to be here. So before we really get started, though, I'd like to just remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones. You can just take a moment, because everything tonight will be taped. And we want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with any audio equipment or video equipment. That'll be much appreciated. And so the way that this evening is going to work is we are going to have 7 people. 7 people from Latin America and from Spain telling true stories without notes. Daniel Garcia is going to be our timekeeper. Now, every storyteller has exactly 6 to 7 minutes. If after 6 minutes, the storyteller hasn't quite wrapped up their story, we're going to give them a little nudge. And that little nudge is going to sound a little something like this. And if you hear that, that's a little sign to the storyteller, okay, it's time to start wrapping it up. Everybody's waiting for you. And if after another minute, the storyteller hasn't wrapped up, we'll give them a little bit more menacing sound. It will sound like this. Ooh, very menacing. Very menacing indeed. And that will be the end, hopefully, of the story. Correct?
Correct.
Sounds good? Awesome. So, let's get, we are going to bring some people up to the stage first before we actually get started. Here we go. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at my notes. I shouldn't be. Before we get started, we're going to bring up Ignacia Olmos, who is the director of the Instituto Cervantes.
Thank you very much for coming. We are thrilled about this project at Instituto Cervantes. This is a very original idea. The Spain culture in New York and Instituto Cervantes joined the Moth to make it possible. The moth in Spanish, Spanish Arts Speak Spanish. And we are very happy because, Spanish is a reality here in New York. If you consider that we have here 2.5 million Spanish speakers in New York, that means more or less 28-29% of the population. Is it time to have the moth in Spanish? So we are really, really happy to have this premiere tonight at the Instituto Cervantes, and I want to thank everybody who have made it possible, starting with the Spanish Consul for Cultural Affairs, Íñigo Ramírez de Haro, who is with us tonight. And I want to mention another two people who were key in this organization, Belén Quiera and Marisa Atas. Thank you very much for being here. I'm sure you are going to enjoy it. I hope you follow the whole stories in Spanish, and if you don't, or not fully, you can start learning in Spanish here at the Institute.
Thank you so much for that. We definitely need to all learn a little bit of Spanish. Don't you agree? Yeah. Now, by round of applause, who here does speak a little bit of Spanish? Who here is absolutely fluent in Spanish? Completely fluent in Spanish. Round of applause, round of applause. Okay, great. And who here knows no Spanish? Okay, great. No, okay. That's awesome. I totally appreciate the honesty because I wanted to actually share a little bit about how I ended up here at the Instituto Cervantes working with this awesome group of 7 individuals that you're going to hear tonight. So when I was about 18 years old, I was just coming out of this weird part of my life because I thought I wanted to be a pro athlete. That wasn't going to happen. Was not going to happen. And so I decided it was my sophomore year, and everybody at UCLA's campus was talking about who's going to go abroad, who's going to go abroad, who's going to go abroad. And I was like, maybe I'll go abroad. Maybe I'll go abroad. But I had no background. I had taken 2 classes of Spanish in high school. This was my sophomore year, so I hadn't really been practicing or anything, but I didn't really know what else to do. So I went to the study abroad program office. And when I got there, I said, okay, look, I don't speak Spanish very well, but puedo tentar, I can try, right? And they're like, okay, fill out this application. Maybe you'll get into a program. Possibly. It's a little bit late in the application pool, but maybe. I had 3 choices of places where I could apply. Spain, Costa Rica, and Mexico. So I was like, okay, I'll go anywhere. I just want to get out of the country. I just want to go. And so I filled out the applications. And I remember the day that the results came back. I was like waiting on pins and needles to see what was going to happen. And I got the results. Spain, denied. Costa Rica, denied. Mexico, accepted. I was like, okay, great. So at 18 years old, I was going to Mexico to study abroad for the very, very first time. And when I get there, I immediately felt like I was a little bit out of place. Here I was, this tall, random black girl wandering around Mexico City. And I spoke Spanish, but not very well. And I didn't really think about that before actually going to Mexico. I figured, I have Mexicano friends, Me gusta burritos, I know that Los Angeles is actually like Los, the city of angels. I was like, yes. But being in Mexico City was a completely different reality. I mean, people were talking so fast, and I was feeling like I was standing out. And I always remember I stayed in this place. Now, the 2-story house. Can't really call it 2 stories because actually the bottom was the house where my house mother, Maria, and her son, Pedro, who was about my age at the time, 18 years old, lived. They lived in the bottom house. Myself and my roommate, Chantal, myself from UCLA, Chantal from Berkeley, were going to be staying in this kind of a brick structure on top of the house. No heater, no bathroom, just a brick structure next to a big old pane of water so that the water could be flushed through the system of the house. It's kind of an interesting situation, but we dealt with it. And because there was no way to to call up to the people above if somebody needed to call on the telephone, the way that my Maria would do it was she'd just call out. And so the first time that somebody called from home, they yelled out, Tan, telefono, Tan. And I was like, Tan, telefono. I was like, oh wait, they're talking to me. Dawn, my name is Dawn. And so I run down the stairs and I go pick up the phone, and I'm so happy. I'm talking to my mom and my dad, my brothers and my sisters. And I was like, my name is actually Dawn. And they're like, Dawn? I was like, no, Dawn. Tan. Okay, so never mind. So I asked Chantal, I was like, so how do I say Dawn in Espanol? She's like, oh, it'd be like Aurora or Amanecer or something like that. And I was like, okay, cool. Just call me Aurora. And they're like, Aurora! Claro que sí! I didn't see. Vamos. I was like, and everything has changed from that moment forward. I was like, okay. And people would start to speak to me like really quickly, and I wouldn't quite get it. And I would just, I had two ways of communicating when I didn't understand something. I'd either nod my head, or like, ah, and I would just like that. Those were like my only two responses if I didn't know what was going on. But little by little, I had to pay attention a little bit more. I had to actually listen to people's words and people's expressions, and little by little, I actually started becoming a little bit more comfortable speaking and talking in Spanish. And so when I finally was done with this program, I was able to present in Spanish, and I had written a paper in Spanish. And I thought I was done. I'd go back to California. I'd have my time. I'd be able to converse more fluidly with the Latinos, and hang out. And I would never have to present again until 6 weeks ago when I got an email from Larry saying, hey, you speak a little bit of Spanish, right? It's like, I speak a little. It's like, do you want to be part of this first ever Spanish-speaking Moth event? And I said, claro que sí. Claro que sí. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, everyone ready to bring on tonight's event?
Yeah.
All right.
This couldn't have been done if we didn't have Alba Parejo.
Oh, yes, we're definitely gonna celebrate and thank
we cannot
them.
start without first
Okay, thank you. We will be getting around to thanking so many people because this seriously could not have happened without a lot of different people. So thank you so much for bringing that up. We appreciate that.